Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a really fascinating stack of your sources.
We've got a bit of everything. Ancient maxims, some modern philosophy, and even a little classic film analysis.
And it all centers around one profound question, really. What truly determines who we are? We're digging into the architecture of character.
It's the question that, it dictates everything. Success, failure, happiness. And I think most of us, maybe without even realizing it, we rely on this comfortable myth that we're defined by our potential, by our abilities, our innate talents, or the circumstances we were born into. We sort of feel like that talent is the truest part of us.
And that, right there, is the exact myth we're here
Wow.
to smash today.
I like that.
Our whole mission for this deep dive is to unpack this really heavy-hitting idea. It's our choices that determine who we really are, far more than our abilities. And this isn't just about, accountability. It's about recognizing that the small daily decisions, those are the actual blueprints for the person you're becoming.
It forces you to stop waiting for your ability to just magically turn on.
Right.
It's a huge shift from focusing on what you were given to focusing on what you choose to do with it. If character is architecture, then ability.
Yeah.
It's just the pile of materials you got dropped off. Choice is the act of building.
So let's start there, with that hard-edged distinction between ability and action.
Okay.
You can have just immense talent, a genius for music, a knack for languages, a brilliant mind for business, whatever it is. But if you don't use it, if you don't choose to engage with it, it doesn't just sit there.
No, it becomes a weight.
It becomes an active weight. It's this great story about what you could have been. And honestly, that can create a much deeper sense of failure than for someone who never had that talent in the first place.
And that leads us right into this very blunt observation from Kevin Kelly. It just cuts through all the excuses we make for ourselves.
What does he say?
He says, "You are what you do, not what you say, not what you believe, not how you vote, but what you spend your time on."
Oof, that is brutal.
Unnecessary.
But necessary, right.
Yeah, completely.
Because you can spend years affirming that you're a writer or an intellectual or a devoted friend. But if you look at the evidence,
The ledger.
yeah, the ledger, it might tell a completely different story.
And the ledger doesn't lie. That's the thing. We love to point to our intentions, the gym membership we bought, the book we meant to start reading.
The business plan we sketched out on a napkin.
Exactly. But your calendar and your bank statement, those are the truest ledgers of who you are. They show where your money and, more importantly, where the finite hours of your life actually went.
So you might intend to be an investor, but if 95% of your time is spent on, say, streaming shows.
And only 5% is spent researching companies. Well, then the ledger says you're an entertainer, not an investor. Those are documented choices.
Okay, but hang on. I have to push back on that a little.
Go for it.
What if someone has massive ability, but they're paralyzed by external things? Say they're working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. Are we really saying their lack of action is just a character flaw?
That's a really fair and critical challenge. No, we're not saying that circumstances don't matter. They matter immensely.
Okay.
But what we're looking at is the internal allocation of your resources, even your micro resources. In those constrained circumstances, the choices you make with the last 30 minutes of your day or the last dollar in your pocket, that's what's building character.
So ability gets you in the door, but choice is what you do when you're exhausted and broken, everything's against you.
Exactly. And that brings us to what's called the practice principle.
Right. This moves beyond just being competent at something. It's about making the right action inevitable.
The quote is, "Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong."
I love that. You are choosing to literally redig yourself at a neural level, repeating the right action until it's just automatic, instinctive. The choice isn't just to practice once.
No, the repeated practice is the character building, piece by tiny piece.
And this brings us to the film analysis, specifically Stephen Pressfield's take on Casablanca.
Ah, yes. Rick Blaine, the ultimate example of latent ability just buried under years of cynical choices.
He's detached, he's just running a bar, and he says he sticks his neck out for no one. We're supposed to assume that's who he is.
But then you get to Act 3, the payoff. He chooses the greater good, puts Ingrid Bergman and Victor Laszlo on that plane.
Then the Nazi, Major Strasser, tries to stop them. And Bogey, he just pulls a gun and drills him. No hesitation.
Followed by Captain Renault's famous line, "Round up the usual suspects, choosing to cover for Rick." It's this incredible moment of defining action.
But what's so fascinating is that Bogey's ability, his marksmanship, his moral compass, It was always there.
It was always there, but the choice to pull that trigger wasn't some random out-of-the-blue decision. It was the revelation of the man he had been choosing to become under that whole cynical facade.
All those small choices he'd made during the war, the moral lines he refused to cross, they all added up.
Yes. His character didn't change in that moment. It was finally expressed.
So the twist isn't that he suddenly became a hero. The twist is that he finally chose to act like the person he'd been secretly building all along. The ability was just waiting for the choice.
So if character is built by choices, then we have to look at the single biggest obstacle to making them.
Which is?
The forces that restrain us. You know, inherited limitations and, maybe most of all, internalized fear.
And this is where Alejandro Jodorowsky gives us one of the most powerful and honestly one of the most heartbreaking metaphors I've ever heard.
Birds born in cages think flying is an illness.
Just think about the weight of that for a second.
It's staggering. You have the ability, the wings are right there. But your environment, your whole world has taught you that using them is dangerous.
Or unrealistic. Or even a sign of, like, mental instability.
Yes. We internalize all those external limits. The voices that told us to get a real job or don't rock the boat.
Be realistic. I heard that one a lot.
Me too. And eventually those limitations start to masquerade as our own wisdom.
Absolutely. So if you were born into a cage that preached financial scarcity, then the choice to start a risky, high-potential business, it doesn't feel like ambition.
It feels like self-destruction. The cage has convinced the bird that the most natural, biologically necessary thing it can do flying is a disease. And we're taught to avoid disease, so we choose inaction.
And that inaction keeps the chains invisible.
That's the vicious cycle. Rosa Luxemburg's quote explains it perfectly. Those who do not move do not notice their chains.
Wow.
If you're perfectly comfortable in your cage, you feel perfectly free. You don't realize the extent of your own limits until you try to push past them.
So the choice to move, just to try something, is the first step to even figuring out what the problem is. You choose to run toward the edge of the cage, and only then do you feel the wires.
And the real tragedy is the person who lives their whole life talking about their potential. But they never feel the limits of their own internal world because they just never tried to move.
This suggests a powerful counterpractice then, a sort of daily discipline to push back.
A discipline of choosing discomfort. The idea is, each day, do something you would rather not.
And this isn't about punishing yourself. It's an act of noticing, using discomfort as a diagnostic tool.
Exactly. When you choose to sit down and write, when you'd rather scroll through social media, you're practicing flight. When you choose to tackle the hardest task first, when you'd rather put it off.
You're testing the strength of your chains. It's the small, repeated act of choosing the harder path that teaches the bird its wings actually work.
And we forget that this challenge, this movement, it's biologically fundamental. Erwan Le Corre, when he talks about natural movement, he notes that it has always been and will always be a timeless biological necessity.
So growth and challenge aren't luxury items. They're part of our design.
They're essential. The cage taught us that safety and staying still are wise, but our actual nature demands effort. It demands challenge. Every choice to move or grow is a rejection of those inherited lies and an honoring of our biological imperative.
Okay, so we've established that character is built by choices, and the cage is broken by movement.
Right.
But making those difficult choices consistently requires some serious internal engineering.
How do we build that internal foundation that makes continuous movement possible, even when it's painful?
The foundation is built not on some flimsy idea of confidence, but on earned self-trust. One of the sources puts it this way: the strongest factor for success is self-esteem. Believing you can do it, believing you deserve it, believing you will get it.
And we have to be crystal clear here. This is not the empty self-esteem of, just repeating affirmations in the mirror.
Oh, not at all.
You can say them all day long, but if your past choices don't give you any evidence that you actually follow through, your mind just won't believe you. This is self-esteem earned through the evidence of past difficult choices.
Precisely. When you choose to do the hard thing, you prove to yourself that you can choose it. You create a history of follow-through, even if the results aren't always perfect. That history, that is the foundation. So if you've successfully rowed that small boat through tough waters before, you know you have what it takes to pick up the oar again today.
You've earned that belief.
So if that foundation of self-trust is in place, what's next? The next radical choice we need to master is focus. In a world that is basically designed to steal our attention, choosing to focus becomes an act of radical self-determination.
Baltasar Gracian just highlights the tragedy of distraction so perfectly. He says, Nothing really belongs to us but time.
And when we let ourselves get consumed by mechanical tasks, by distractions, by a profusion of half-finished work, as he calls it,
We're giving away the only thing we truly own. We're choosing to waste our life.
the cost of that is just staggering. And Robert Greene is so direct about this. He basically instructs, in a world full of endless distractions, you must focus and prioritize.
It's not a suggestion, it's a command.
No. It's a necessary choice. You have to actively refuse what doesn't matter, even if those non-essential things are loud or fun or feel really urgent in the moment.
The ability to focus is just proof of self-mastery. Think about it. The talented but scattered person, they end up achieving very little because their choices are spread too thin.
Right.
But the person with modest ability who chooses laser focus and consistency, they end up creating something remarkable. The difference isn't the gift they started with, it's the consistent choice to maintain a singular direction.
And Simon Sinek gives us a great framework for how to sustain that. He suggests that when we have a clear sense of where we're going, we are flexible in how we get there.
Ah, that's key.
The initial choice is to be completely rigid about the destination. That's your non-negotiable focus. But you have to be flexible about the path you take, allowing for changes and adaptations along the way.
So focus is the choice to define the destination, and that earned self-esteem is the proof that you can endure the messy, meandering journey it takes to actually reach it.
Let's move to what is maybe the most sophisticated choice of all, choosing to center yourself internally, so you're independent of your external circumstances. This is about building an internal sanctuary that the chaos of the outside world just can't touch.
Tad Williams offers this beautiful counsel on it. He shifts the whole locus of control. He says, never make your home in a place. Make a home for yourself inside your own head.
That immediately implies a conscious architectural choice, doesn't it? What do we furnish that internal home with?
We furnish it with things that are portable and that last. Memory, deep principles, friends you can truly trust, and, so critically, a love of learning.
Because if your sense of self relies on your job title or your zip code or your social status,
all external things, you're constantly vulnerable, you can lose all of that. But if your home is inside your head, built from your chosen principles and the knowledge you've gathered, it travels with you, no matter what happens.
And building that internal architecture, it has to drastically change your perspective on the external world. It transforms it from a source of stress into a source of discovery.
And Proust captured this perfectly. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes.
New eyes aren't a gift you receive.
No, they're cultivated by your choices. You choose what you read, what you practice, what you pay attention to. If you choose to consume endless bad news, you cultivate eyes that only see despair.
But if you choose to seek out patterns and history and beauty,
you cultivate eyes that find opportunity and resilience. That shift in perspective is the ultimate choice. It profoundly alters who you are and what choices you'll make next.
But let's be honest, choice is exhausting. How do we sustain this level of effort and focus over decades? It's one thing to choose greatness on day 1. What about on day 3,000?
This is where you need a fuel source that outlasts simple willpower. Lionel Messi, coming from the relentless world of pro football, he summed it up. He said, you can overcome anything if and only if you love it enough.
And that kind of love, it isn't passive enjoyment.
Not at all. It's a sustained choice to endure the grind. It's the choice to love the process more than you hate the momentary effort.
That sustained choice builds what Coach Ganjon calls the eye of the tiger.
Yes, the unwavering focus that sees the goal and just ignores all the pain and distraction. You choose to love the mission more than you fear the sacrifice required. And that choice gives you an endurance that raw ability can never, ever provide.
So we've really established that character isn't defined by where we start, by our ability, but by this accumulation of choices. And we started with the idea that this whole challenge is simple, but it's not easy. And the sources really confirm that paradox. It's simple, not easy. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it.
And we have to stay humble when we face the size of this challenge. We are tiny and the world is vast. We have to acknowledge the scope of reality. There's that beautiful old prayer, oh God, thy sea is so great and my boat is so small. Amen.
The sea is vast. It's indifferent to our potential. But we still have the choice of where to point our small boat. And that acknowledgement of the scale and the difficulty. That's why Seneca reminded us that sometimes even to live is an act of courage.
Just getting through the day.
Choosing character day after day in the face of all that.
Yeah.
It requires radical courage.
And this brings us right back around to Zig Ziglar's core message. It just perfectly summarizes the lesson of the ledger. It's not where you start, but where you finish that counts. Your starting ability is totally irrelevant to your ending character.
Your choices determine everything.
Everything.
So for everyone listening,
Yeah.
we are all in Act 3 of something. A career, a marriage, a major life phase. And if the twists that define us don't come from discovering some miraculous, hidden ability, but from finally acting on the capabilities we've always had, but we're too afraid to use, if that's the definition of character.
Then the question isn't what are you capable of, because you're likely capable of far more than you're currently demonstrating.
The real question is, who are you choosing to become today? Right now, in this unglamorous moment when no one is watching.
That daily choice. Repeat it until you can't get it wrong. That determines everything. So we'd encourage you to start furnishing your internal home and just see what your new eyes reveal.